Senator for Legislative District 44. This forum is co-presented by the League of Women Voters. That's what I was saying. I didn't see anything that I had to say. Welcome to our forum for candidates for Senator for Legislative District 44. This forum is co-presented by the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County and the Snohomish County Forum Coalition, whose members are C3 Coalition, AAUW, Edmonds College, the Daily Herald, KSER, KXIR, NAACP, Sultan School District, and Snow Owl Libraries. Thank you all for your continued League support. I'm a League member, Nadine Shanti, and I'm pleased to introduce my co-moderator, John Bauer. John is the opinion page editor of the Daily Herald, which is a long-standing League partner. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Nadine. And my thanks to the League and its partners for their considerable work in organizing and presenting these forums. The Herald and its editorial board consider all elections, from school board races to presidential elections, to be of foundational importance to our democracy and good government. We, like the League, stress the importance of voting in all elections, but also the responsibility of all for informed voting. Prior to voting, we urge voters to consider not only the candidate's position on various issues, but also their personal and professional experience, their preparedness for the office, and their commitment to community and the democratic process. During this forum, Zoom's chat function is not available, but we encourage voters, if they want to share their thoughts on what they've heard here, to write a letter to the editor. Letters can be submitted with phone number and city of residence to letters@heraldnet.com. We want to give a special thanks out to our live stream sponsor, the Sultan School District, with technical help from Dave Moon and a terrific team of students at turkpride.tv. Let's give them a moment to say hello.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you all. To those in the virtual space, thank you for joining us. This forum will run about an hour. Today's questions were prepared with input from the community members and are quite comprehensive. We won't be taking additional questions from our live audience for this event. The recording of the forum will be available on this same YouTube channel for later viewing.
Legislative District 44 includes Mill Creek, Snohomish, Cathcart, and Maltby. Candidates for Senator for Legislative District 44 are Jeb Brewer and John Lovick, and both candidates are with us today. We thank both candidates for running for office, for their willingness to serve if elected, and for their participation in this forum. The forum for candidates for representatives for District 44 is scheduled following this event. We remind our viewers that the League is nonpartisan, so we don't endorse or oppose candidates or parties. We do educate and support voters and the election process in our communities.
The rules for forum participation were sent ahead of time to all participants, and they have agreed to engage in respectful communication throughout the event. Let's briefly explain the question and answer period rules, and then we can begin. Each candidate will have either 60 or 90 seconds to respond. There will be one question that asks for a simple yes or no response and will not be timed. We will state these changes clearly, excuse me. We're using a countdown timer visible to all candidates, and time limits on answers will be strictly enforced. Finally, we offer each candidate the opportunity to ask a question of their opponent based on the issues raised in the forum. Candidates will have 60 seconds to respond.
Okay, now we will change the starting order for each question, alternating candidates in the starting position to ensure a fair sequence. The order for the first question will be Mr. Brewer and then Mr. Lovick. Candidates have 60 seconds to respond to this question. Mr. Brewer, your question is, what qualifications and experience make you a strong candidate for this position?
Well, for over 30 years, I've worked in multiple areas of business, whether it be construction, restaurant operations, manufacturing. I have a broad knowledge of process control, cost reduction, lean technology, holding people accountable, and maintaining budgets. So all of which I believe are applicable to this position.
Thank you. Mr. Lovick, same question.
Thank you very much. I served 13 years on the United States Coast Guard, 31 years with the Washington State Patrol. I was on the Mill Creek City Council for 5 years, and I've spent 15 years in the legislature and almost 9 months as a state senator. I was the Snohomish County Sheriff for 5.5 years, 2.5 years as county executive. And I just love public service. I love what I'm doing, and I love what I'm have the opportunity to do. So I feel I'm uniquely qualified. I've served in every position. I've been in the state Senate now for just about 9 months, and I think I'm uniquely prepared to continue in this work. But before I end, I have a few seconds left. I want to just read something to you. It was by 19th century poet Tagore, Rabin Tagore said, "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted and behold, service was joy." I want to thank all of you for your service, for the service that you're providing to this community. Really, really pleased with the League of Women Voters. Thank you very, very much. And the Sultan School District.
Thank you. Please set the timer for 90 seconds. Mr. Lovick, this question will begin with you. What are your priorities for the next legislative session?
So thank you for the question again. There are going to be a lot of priorities that we're going to have, but I'm going to be working quite a bit. As you probably know, I spent almost 4 decades as a law enforcement officer, and we have some issues with law enforcement. So one of my top priorities is going to be the top priority for our communities, which is community safety. So one of my priorities will be public safety, to address the issue of homelessness, and of course, to make sure that we continue to address the issue of choice. And when I say choice, I'm talking about choice where we need to make sure that if any woman has to make the decision to have an abortion, that decision should be between her, her family, and her physician. So my priorities will be community safety, public safety, homelessness, and choice.
Thank you. Mr. Brewer, same question.
Sure. Well, I think, as I've been going around the communities, talking to different people, the biggest thing right now is public safety. The laws that were passed a couple of years ago, pretty much you talk to any police officer out there, nobody's happy with what's going on. There's a lot of fear in the community. There's a lot of crime. Like pretty much every metric, crime is up. And while that's a concern for him, those are all legislations that he's passed while he's been in office. And that's all stuff we need to fix. The other issue is taxes. We pay the third highest taxes in gas in the country. That's a problem right now, and we're not getting the value for that. Property taxes, we've had massive amounts of people. I can't tell you how many friends I have that have moved out of the state because they can't see themselves retiring here. That's all stuff we need to stop, and we need to change around and do things differently. So these are all things that the current legislature has implemented that has put us on a path that is going downhill, and I think that's something we need to be changing.
Thank you. And Mr. Brewer, we'll start with you on this question, okay?
Sure.
Are you concerned about polarization in politics in Washington State? Why or why not?
Absolutely. I think, I believe there's some extremism on both sides of both parties right now, and I think we need to stop that. I think we need to be open to working with both sides and having a communication. I think government was designed to have a pendulum of ideas and thoughts, and I think working together is how we need to solve problems. There's way too much finger pointing on both sides, and I believe that I need to be working with both sides of the aisle to be solving our problems. I don't care if it's an R or D next to somebody's name. The job is to get the stuff done and listen to the people.
Thank you. Mr. Lovick, your thoughts on the same question?
So let me just start by saying that we should always be concerned. But I want to just share something with you that sometimes we don't take the time to understand. 94.48% of all of the bills that were passed in our legislature, House and Senate, had bipartisan support. And what does that tell me? What it should tell you? What it tells me is that we work together. There are some things that we don't agree on, but most of the things that we sit down, we talk about them, we work on them. For example, the transportation package. No, we didn't have the process that everyone was pleased with, but we passed a transportation package. A package that is going to benefit everyone in the state. So yes, there is polarization, and the way we do it is we do it by talking. We do it by having conversations like we're having tonight. You will probably know I've only met Mr. Brewer twice. I have never referred to him as my opponent. We are political opponents. I'm sorry, I've never referred to him as just my opponent. We are political opponents, but we're not enemies. There are people, if you'll recall, a person used to always refer to everybody as being the enemies. We are not enemies. We are political opponents, and that is how we end this polarization, by talking to each other, by having events like we are having tonight, by realizing that we're political opponents only, but we are not enemies.
Thank you. Candidates, we're having a little bit of a feedback problem, so we're going to ask you to mute when you're not speaking and see if that can help us a little. Can you do that? Mr. Lovick, what, if anything, should be done to mitigate concerns about climate change in Washington State?
I need to.
No, you're muted now. You need to unmute now.
Okay, I need to unmute you. You know, to start with, I want to tell you that climate change is real. And anyone that tells you that it is not real, our climate change is absolutely real. I think some of the things that we did, I think passing the 16-year, $17 billion transportation package that we passed and was signed by the governor, we're going to get people, particularly kids, they will be able to ride bicycles, they will be able to ride trains, ferries, and buses free. I think we need to do everything we can. That's getting them out of the car. I think we need to do everything we can to try and trying to electrify our system to the extent that we can. But we're going to mitigate this by realizing that the biggest contributor to climate change, I believe, are the gas-using vehicles. And the things that we did in the legislature will help in that area. So I'm pleased that I had the opportunity to vote for a transportation package that did not, by the way, include a gas tax. So I think we're going to be able to mitigate that by doing some of those things, working on some of the things that we have worked on, that I've been pleased to work on and to work with in the legislature.
Thank you. Mr. Brewer, your thoughts on the same question?
Sure. So, a couple of significant thoughts. The environment is a very significant issue, and climate change is an issue. It is definitely happening. Governor Inslee just came out and said that he wants to have all electric vehicle sales by 2030. That actually poses a lot of problems. We don't have the infrastructure for it. We don't have the charging systems for it. We don't have the power generation for it. 66% of our power is through hydroelectric, and there's a big movement trying to get rid of the dams. We're trying to get rid of gas and coal production facilities, which is going to create even a bigger problem with that. I believe that we need to be thinking through a 5, 10-year, 20-year plan, if not longer, and making sure that we're making the right decisions and thinking through the process versus just being flippant and saying, well, in 5 years or whatnot, we need to have everybody on electric cars. That's a problem. We're not really thinking through longer term solutions on that. As for, the gas tax that John just mentioned, this energy impact right now is going to have the projected 46 cents a gallon come January for additional gas for that. And that's a problem. We need to be thinking through the impact of the people and making sure we have a solid plan moving forward and truly address it.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Brewer, we'll stick with you for the moment. What do you believe are the 3 best ideas for addressing the dangers of violent firearm incidents in our state?
For violent
firearms,
like forest fires and whatnot?
No, firearms, guns.
Oh, violent firearms. Thank you. I tend to believe that if you have a gun, you should be able to be educated in the use of the gun. I don't, if you're buying something, regardless of age, You need to be taking training classes of that. You definitely need to know how to use any sort of weaponry you're purchasing. You need to know how to disarm a weapon. That's thing number one we need to be doing. High capacity, some of these barrels they have with 100 bullet rounds and stuff. Obviously, there's no place for those things. You don't need a 100-round chamber to protect your house or whatnot. So I think those are just a couple immediate things that we probably need to fix.
Great. And Senator Lovick.
Yes, a great question. I thank you guys for being so thoughtful in asking this question. I think we need to look at calling more attention to the extreme risk protection orders, making the public more aware of those orders. If you remember, we passed 3 initiatives in our state, and they were passed by overwhelming numbers. I think in some cases, 57, 58%. Enhanced background checks would help. You probably know this, and I'm sure your listeners, those viewing this will know that the largest source of gun deaths, 75% of them, is due to suicide. So we need to invest more in mental health. And I'm very, very pleased with some of the things that we've done, but I think we need to invest more in mental health and then just bring communities together to make sure that we make people very much aware of the extreme risk protection orders when a person needs the help and care that they need. I think we could reduce gun violence in those areas. And it's something, I will just say this, it's something that I've had to personally deal with a few times, and as a police officer, knowing how difficult it is, but the area of suicide is something that we need to make sure that we address.
Very good, thank you. And staying with you, Senator Lovick, and this relates to what you mentioned earlier regarding behavioral health. Do you believe that there is sufficient access to behavioral health care in Snohomish County and across the state? If yes, would you recommend any modifications to those programs? If not, what would you prioritize for increased access?
When the person having to deal with this, there is never enough. So I would say the answer to this is it's sufficient if you are the one getting the help that you need, But for the most part, we need to do everything we can to make sure that we work with those professionals, have the professionals we need, fund them well, put the dollars into the communities. So it's yes and no. There's never enough. If you're the one that needs this, needs the care and needs the help and needs the treatment. So we just need to do more to make sure that we address this, because it is an area that a lot of us don't know until we've had to deal with it. And I've been a person on a personal level, I've had to deal with it with family members, and I've had to deal with it from a professional level as a police officer and as a community leader.
Thank you. Mr. Brewer, same question.
It seems that since we've closed the state hospitals, the problems just continue to get worse. I have very close friends who have children who have a lot of mental health issues. The waiting times are months out. There is just not enough resources to be able to help the people of need right now. A lot of it is the homelessness that we see around here. That's certainly not helping, getting any better either. So clearly we're not addressing the problem. And so we need to look at it differently, in different eyes, and challenge ourselves to find different ways to address it, because what we've been doing is not working. And it saddens me so much when I hear from friends that they can't get the help for their kids they need because there's such a backlog.
Very good, thank you. Next question, and Mr. Brewer, staying with you. This is just a simple yes or no. Do you support ranked choice voting as a voting option? Yes or no?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Yes. So this is just a yes or no response. Do you support ranked choice voting? Yes or no?
Ranked choice voting. Actually, I'm not familiar with that term. Okay.
I don't know. We have time for me to explain it. All right. We'll just move on to Senator Lovick.
So just a yes or no. I know exactly what ranked choice voting is. I certainly followed it, what went on in Alaska. I'm going to say for now, yes, but and it's hard to say yes or no, but I'm going to say for now,
right.
Yes, that's what I've seen.
Very good, thank you. Next question, Mr. Senator Lovick. And we're returning back to 60 seconds for these next few questions. How would you propose to make housing or rent more affordable in our area?
Well, this is an area that I am spending a tremendous amount of time on. I was on a meeting today with the Speaker of the House, and we're talking about, first of all, we need more stock. And I'll just be very, very clear about that. We need more stock. But I'm also looking at a model called the Singapore model, which is, I'm referring to the Singapore model as public housing with a twist, where we absolutely, these homes are owned by government with the option of having the person end up owning them. But I'm working on a program with the former Speaker of the House, Speaker Chop. It's going to be called a covenant reinvestment account. In this account, what we will do is we will invest $100 per transaction, and we could raise $150 million per year, which would be something like $3 billion over a period of 20 years. This money will be invested to allow those who need these funds to have down payments on homes. So we need to do some of those things. And I'll just say this, James Baldwin said it, and I'll repeat it. Oh, I'm sorry.
Time is up.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Brewer, next.
Sure. Well, I think it starts with our urban plan in our cities. I'd like to see the state be promoting more lifestyle centers, areas that have a range of different housing options. Typically, lifestyle centers would be based off of around a park or a centralized community center where you have apartments, lower income apartments, and different housing options there, and then having a multitude of larger and different sized houses that can meet different people's economic and family size needs throughout the area, and do so in a way that reduces the need for vehicles, where people can live and work in the same area, but really try to master plan the community that provides, again, those multiple options, and then centralized areas throughout the state.
Thank you. Could you set the timer back to 90 seconds, please?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Brewer, what are your ideas for ensuring that sufficient infrastructure is built or planned for in surrounding areas to support proposed development?
Well, our long-term plans, it just doesn't seem like we're really planning enough for the roads, for the infrastructure, for the areas. You can pretty much drive on any road you see around the area, and there's traffic backups for incomplete roads, multiple merge points, sidewalks that are completely disconnected. We are not really thinking through the long-term plan. We're letting building be so segmented, it's creating multiple problems through our infrastructure. We're not supporting with our roads as we go through. I think the whole thing needs to be pretty much overhauled as we look at it, and then try to promote more connectivity with roads and infrastructure, and even systems like light rail going to these neighborhoods.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I'd like to remind you, please mute when you are not speaking. It is causing feedback. Mr. Lovick, unmute.
I apologize. I am the one who did not mute. It's tough, this technology. It's fun, but it's tough. Let me just say that we don't know all of the answers, and I certainly don't know all of the answers to this, but I will say in areas that I've worked in, and I go door to door, and I visit homes, and I visit communities, I think the things that we're trying to do, building housing near transit hubs, building those homes near transit hubs is going to help. I think the transportation package that I'm very, very pleased and proud that I had a chance to vote for, because we're doing everything we can to get people out of cars, to get people on trains. Those are the things that I think are going to make a difference. We talk about growth. Snohomish County, I've lived here for 45 years now. It's one of the fastest growing counties in the state. And we need to be prepared for the influx of people that will come here. But I'm pleased with some of the things that we are working on. We need to put more money in the Housing Trust Fund to make sure that those funds are going to housing in high impact areas like the transit centers. So those are the things that I think will make a huge difference in our infrastructure.
Thank you. Mr. Lovick, we're going to stay with you, so don't mute. Do you believe the taxing system in Washington state is equitable and sufficient to meet the needs of the state and local communities? If not, what changes would you make?
So I need to unmute. So let me just start by saying that one of the things that I did when I was the acting Speaker of the House, it was based on legislation, is we put together a tax structure work group. It is a bipartisan tax structure work group. They're going to tell us what we've done wrong, what we've done right, and what we need to do better. And some of the recommendations that are coming to us, they're talking about things like, they're telling us from words that I'm hearing from members that our tax structure is simply upside down. They're suggesting ideas like the margins tax they have in Texas. I'm liking things like exempting the first $250,000 from a primary residence. I listened to Warren Buffett one day say that our tax structure is so upside down that he could be standing in line at a McDonald's, and he said he would pay the same tax rate as the guy making $9 an hour. So what we need to do is to take the recommendations from this bipartisan tax structure working group and implement some of those. And I'm excited to see some of the things that they're bringing forward. And those are the things that I believe we need to do. And of course, no one likes the capital gains, not the capital gains. No one likes the B&O tax. And so it's those are the kind of things that they're sharing with us that I'm excited to work on.
Thank you. Please mute Mr. Lovick.
Muting right now.
Mr. Brewer, same question.
Well, as John said, nobody likes the capital gains tax. Nobody likes the B&O tax. I love a sales tax system because it's a fairly simple system. What I don't like on it is levels of complexity within tax systems that we throw onto there. If you buy something, I believe you should be able to pay tax on it. And if you're a multi-millionaire or billionaire, and you're buying a multi-million-dollar business, well, you should be paying taxes on that at an equal level. Certainly, we should not be paying tax on certain essential items, food, women's products, stuff like that, because those do affect lower income. A lot of times, I think our gas tax is too high. People of all income levels are trying to get to work and trying to get their kids to school. They're paying a lot of money to gas tax, and that's creating problems. So I think that definitely needs to be addressed as well. But I like a simple tax solution, because as soon as we start having special exemptions, that's where the rich get richer off of that and end up paying less, and then our tax system becomes unfair.
Thank you. Mr. Brewer, we'll stay with you for this question. Would you support making changes to existing state law or the state constitution regarding abortion access? Why or why not? And if yes, what changes would you propose?
Nope. It was voted by initiative. I think it needs to stand as it is right now. The people have voiced that. I don't think the legislature should change that. There's been times like the gas tax or the hard tab tax where the people spoken and the legislature has chosen not to address that. I think that's wrong. When the people have passed something by initiative, is up to the legislature to make sure that's maintained.
That's it. Thank you. Mr. Lovick, same question.
Is this 60 seconds or 1 minute?
This is 90 seconds.
90 seconds.
Yeah. I'll start by saying that it is a decision that has to be a very, very difficult decision for any woman. I believe that decision should be made between the woman, her family, and her physician. The only thing I think we probably need to make sure is that we need to look at rolling back the religious hospital merger that blocks access to a full range of reproductive health care options. It would be great, I think, if we looked at that. And I've heard comments from people, as I go door to door, I've heard comments from people that have shared with me, and I haven't studied every detail. They're talking about things like that we need a constitutional amendment to protect a woman's access to reproductive care. I'll just say this. I've lived long enough to witness the fight for civil rights, voting rights, and now we're fighting for reproductive rights. And it is absolutely time that we have things in place so that we're not having to fight for every single thing. Women are tired of having to fight for their own reproductive rights.
Thank you.
Senator Lovick, sticking with you for the next question. As independent healthcare systems merge with religious healthcare systems, do you have any concerns about resulting limited options for healthcare and procedures? What actions, if any, would you recommend?
You know, I don't know that I would recommend any right now, but I think we need to make absolutely sure that we are looking at those mergers that if they're blocking a woman's access to reproductive care. But as far as recommendations, I don't know. It's something that I know we are going to talk about. I was in Olympia just a few days ago, and I was next to the healthcare, the chair of the state healthcare committee, and it's something that I'm absolutely sure. But as far as recommendations, I don't have any right now, and I just don't know what they would be. But in the process that we go through, this is why we have these conversations in the community. This is why we have these conversations in organizations like this, and this is what I will be listening to from the community as I spend time in the community.
Thank you. And Mr. Brewer, same question.
You know, healthcare is a pretty big thing to unpack. You know, what I don't like, and a lot of people that go through this, where you have a job change, your spouse changes jobs.
Excuse me, Mr. Brewer. Mr. Lovick, would you please mute? Thank you.
Where there's time in your lives when your insurance has a change, you change jobs or whatnot, and your healthcare is tied to your employer. And all of a sudden you have to change, you know, doctors because they have a different plan, a different program. That's very frustrating for everybody involved. I'd love to look at the whole healthcare system we have in the state and see if there's any sort of way how we can change that, where the individual user of that has the ability to have one plan that they stick with, and then then their employer can choose to kick in and support payment for that or whatnot. But I definitely think there's been too much complexity and not enough options for the individual person as part of the healthcare system. But of course, you know, I do recognize there's a lot of stuff involved with healthcare, and a lot of, you know, laws and regulations have been built up over the years. So it's definitely not an easy thing to address, but I really think for the betterment of everybody, it's something that we need to look at.
Thank you. We're going to allow candidates to ask questions of each other here for a moment. We do ask that you ask about responses that you've heard this evening. So Mr. Brewer, do you have a question for Senator Lovick?
Sure. John, I know you're a police officer for many years, and thank you for your service. One of the things I struggle with your voting record was your support of the pursuit laws and the restraint laws. Even what we saw that came out last week with so many different sheriffs and different people that are against that. How do you support those laws that you voted for?
And Senator Lovick, please
unmute. I unmuted.
You're unmuted. Okay.
So after the George Floyd murder in Minnesota, we put together a bipartisan group to look into law enforcement. It was a policing policy leadership team. And we wanted to find out what we needed to do to have community relations and accountability in the community. We ended up passing, I believe, 13 bills. The governor signed 13 bills. And from those 13 bills, the law enforcement community came to us with 4 concerns. One of the concerns was reasonable suspicion versus probable cause, less lethal weapons, pursuits and the Involuntary Treatment Act. We fixed all of those. The only thing that we did not do to the satisfaction of law enforcement is pass legislation that I worked on, House Senate Bill 5919, to address pursuits. The pursuit policy that we were proposing is actually, most agencies have pursuit policies more restrictive than the policies that we passed in Olympia.
All right, Mr. Lovick.
Thank you. Senator Lovick, do you have a question for Mr. Brewer?
So, and I really hate to disappoint anybody, but I really appreciate the opportunity to sit down with Mr. Brewer. And I really want him to know that we are not enemies. We are political opponents, nothing more, nothing less. And I don't have a question. I just want to wish him, his family, and his friends the best. I want to wish him peace, patience, and kindness. It's been kind working with him, and I just don't have a question, and I apologize for not having one.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Staying with you, John, and this is the final question for the evening. And please set the timer to 60 seconds. Are there any additional issues or information that you'd like to share with our audience?
You know, probably the only thing I would share with them is that we need to be a community. We need to realize that we are, and I don't say this with any disrespect to my colleagues back in Washington, D.C., we as a state, we are this Washington, not the other Washington. I think we work very, very well together. I've said this many times and I'll say it again. Almost 95% of all of the bills that the governor signed had bipartisan support. What does that tell us? It tells me that Republicans and Democrats look at the policies that we have and they say that those policies are good for them and their constituents. And we need to continue doing that. I'm pleased with what I've had the privilege of doing in my almost 52 years of public service, starting in the Coast Guard as a young man many, many years ago. And that's what I'd like to tell the audience. I'm pleased with the work that I've had the privilege of doing. Enjoy serving you.
Thank you. And Mr. Brewer.
Well, again, I said it, you know, John, I appreciate your service and thank you very much.
Mr.
for
Lovick,
what you've
please
done,
mute.
either in the legislature as a police or in the Coast Guard. And that's just awesome that you've led a life of public service like that. And I'm truly appreciative of that. My comment on this is, though, that the reason why I'm running is because I've lived out in the state for 19 years. And I look around and it's not the same state it was. And I ask a lot of people, are we better off now than a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? And the answer generally is no. And because of that, which is why I'm running, because I think there's things we can be doing differently. And I think I have the background and experience that can do things differently and work with both parties to find unique solutions and try to change the state and continue to try to put it on a path of improvement. So thank you.
Thank you. And gentlemen, thank you both sincerely. The League and the Forum Coalition appreciate these candidates for joining us and for running for office. The recording of this forum and others will be available on the League of Women Voters Snohomish County website and YouTube and its YouTube channel. You can find those links at lwvsnoho.org. We encourage you to explore additional information about these and all candidates. The Snohomish County Voter Pamphlet will be mailed to residences starting October 8th. Vote411.org, sponsored by the League of Women Voters, is another good source for nonpartisan voting information. You can also find answers to additional questions in the Daily Herald.
Ballots will be mailed on October 20th and Election Day is November 8th. Please be a voter. We thank the Snohomish County Forum Coalition members and the League team who coordinated this forum. Again, a special thank you to Dave Moon and his team of students at Turk Pride TV at the Sultan School District for their excellent technical support today. And of course, thanks to all of you for listening and watching. This concludes our candidate forum.